So now if you have this depth is less, either if the vestibular depth is not that much, you can go with a lingual bar. You will have to extend your major connector either in superior direction or inferior direction. Now as I said, we have limited vestibular depth. That means there is no space for the connector to go down. The sulcus has already been reached. You can only go upwards. So now what they did, they modified and made a second design of major connector that forms a lingual plate major connector. Lingual plate major connector. So now this is like a plate. If you see the cross section diagram, it starts from the sulcus and goes till the cingulum of the teeth, like your palatal major connector. It was in the same way, it is your lingual plate major connector. So it is almost similar to your lingual bar, the previous one, okay, but extends superiorly till cingulum of the teeth or the lingual surface of the teeth, till the lingual surface of the teeth. Okay, first point, that they are similar to your lingual bar major connector, but they will extend till the cingulum or the lingual surface of the teeth. Okay, the material of choice you will use is chrome. Okay, chrome metal is the material of choice because it is rigid enough. Okay, so you can go with a chrome metal lingual plate major connector. Okay, now I told the superior border, right? So the superior border or the margin which is extending till the lingual surface of the teeth should be thin and feather edge. Okay, feather edged. Apart from that, it should be in flush with the teeth. Okay, surface of the teeth. So what do I mean by this point is, if you see from the cross section over here, this major connector, if I see, it is directly in flush or merging with the teeth surface. So there is no separate step forming over here or any margin formed. It is actually becoming thin and merging with the teeth, right? So there is no interference from the tongue, or there is no irritation to the tongue when the tongue rests on the lingual surface of the teeth, right? So that is very much important to note. So the superior border should rest on the lingual surface of the teeth, and it should be in flush or it should be a thin feather edged margins. Now sometimes what happens is, we might have spacing between the teeth. Okay, so if there is spacing between the teeth, in that cases spacing between the teeth or large embrasures. So in that case, if we have spacing between the teeth, when some major connector is going on the lingual surface of the teeth, right, so between those spaces you can see that black color of the metal, right? So to avoid that black exposure, what we do, we give a step back design. What we give a step back design. In that, what we do is, in the step back design over here, if you see in the diagram, the one border will be according to the scalloping of the teeth, where you go below the level of the teeth and come back up, go down, come back up, so that in the middle part you cannot see any metal, and below the teeth one more joint over here. So this connection also forms a major connector, but this is a step back design of lingual plate major connector, where you create a slit in between, and moreover you keep your major connector as a scalloped margin, so that it is not visible between the spaces or the large embrasures which are present in between the surfaces or the proximal surface of the teeth. Anteriorly, in the step back design, we have two borders, right? Anterior margin or part and the posterior. Okay, so the anterior margin which is scalloped, so first thing it should be scalloped, it should have a rest. Okay, because that is where it will go and sit on the teeth, right? The rest surfaces should also be present, and that will be present moreover on the mesial fossa of premolar. Mesial fossa of your premolar. So again, zooming into this diagram for you guys, if you see over here, this is your canine, this is your lateral incisor. From here, if the plate is coming up, you should give a mesial rest on the mesial triangular fossa of your premolar 1. So the anterior part will have a mesial rest. So if you see in this also, this is the anterior part, this is the posterior part. Anterior part has rest, posterior is providing additional support for the anterior one, right? So that is how it goes in your step back design of your lingual plate major connector. Where can you use this type of major connector? So if I talk about the indications, so the first and the foremost indication is when no posterior teeth are present. Posterior teeth are present. Okay, so you have only anterior teeth, but requirement of additional indirect retention and support is there. Okay, so when you require indirect retention and additional support, you can use a lingual plate major connector where it will utilize the strength of all the remaining anterior teeth, or indirectly you are splinting all the anterior teeth. The same way you use your palatal major connector or complete palate or anatomical major connector, where you were ultimately reinforcing and providing an indirect retention to the prosthesis. In the same way for mandible also, the lingual plate will be used where you need more support from the anterior, because majority of the posterior teeth are not there, and along with the support you also require indirect retention. Okay, second is when, as I said, other dentition or the present teeth are not periodontically sound. So when the teeth are not periodontically sound, you require additional support. Okay, then when lingual bar is contraindicated, lingual bar cannot be placed. Okay, it is cannot be placed. You have a very limited vestibular depth. In that case, lingual bar cannot be placed. In the cases of tori, again, tori will break the continuity of your lingual plate, so you will have to relieve it or you have to remove the tori. Okay, when there is excessive vertical ridge resorption, okay, when the ridge resorption is more, okay, when the vertical ridge resorption is more, like if you see in Kennedy class 1, Kennedy class 1 is what? Bilateral edentulous area. Along with that bilateral edentulous area, if the height of the ridge is less, suppose I give you two situations. If you see the oral cavity from behind, this is one ridge and this is another form of ridge. Okay, this has good amount of height, so the rotational or the lateral forces will be well tolerated. This is not having that much amount of height, so this is more has tendency to rotate or move. Okay, in that case there will be resorption plus less height, where you need more indirect retention. You can go with a lingual plate major connector, right? Suppose in cases where there is retrognathic jaw. Retrognathic jaw means when the mandible is behind, way more behind than the maxilla. Okay, and you want to avoid the over eruption of the incisor, so you can keep a plate which will rest on the lingual surface of the teeth, so the teeth won't supra erupt. Okay, that is also one more indication. So now moving on to the advantages. Again, rigid enough, okay, because the structure is bigger than the lingual bar. Easy, not so complex, right? It provides indirect retention, provides indirect retention with from the premolars, okay, because as I said, we are placing a mesial rest, okay, so that mesial rest also will help in providing indirect retention. You will be better able to relate the property of indirect retention when we study that topic in the next coming 1 or 2 lectures, right? And if you want to do any additional tooth replacement, you can add in that denture only, okay. Additional tooth replacement can also be done. So suppose you place an RPD with all posteriors both the side, and you place the lingual plate major connector. Suppose one canine or one incisor is lost in future, in that area you can keep the teeth. You need not modify and make a new RPD. The modifications can be done in that itself, okay. So these are the advantages. When I talk about the disadvantages of lingual plate major connector, so when we talk about the disadvantages, again, food accumulation is more, okay. So oral hygiene maintenance is difficult, right? Second one, it might also cause irritation to mucosa if proper relief is not given. Irritation to mucosa. Suppose if I draw a side view, okay, and I am placing a lingual plate major connector like this. Now over here I'll have my gingival tissues also. So till the teeth part, the lingual plate can be in contact with the whole teeth, because that is the hard area, right? Strong rigid area where we can gain support, that will go and sit over there. But over here, if we talk about the tissues, you need to provide a relief so that it doesn't go and impinge in the tissues. If that relief is not proper, it might lead to irritation of mucosa, okay. So that also has to be kept in mind when we are discussing about lingual plate major connectors, okay. Next, so this is about the lingual plate major connector. Quite easy. Bit points are more, because obviously the uses and the indications and the advantages are more compared to the previous one, but almost similar to the maxillary ones. Now moving on to the third, we had AP bar, anteroposterior palatal bar, in maxilla. Here we have double lingual bar. So now instead of making a full plate, now we have one more design, that is a double lingual bar, third major connector, that is called as double lingual bar. So now when we talk about double lingual bar, or one more name is also called as Kennedy bar, because he was the one who came up with this design. So it is called, first it has its in name only, that it is a lingual bar. So one bar out of the two will be a lingual bar, plus along with that it is called, second bar is called a cingulum bar. Cingulum bar. So if I want to tell collectively, it is a lingual bar with a cingulum bar retainer. So what is different? The middle portion from what? From the lingual plate major connector is removed. So the lingual portion is removed from the lingual plate. If you see the design over here, you just remove the not the step back design. Don't confuse with it. It also has step back design, but ideally if you see, there is a one bar which is on the cingulum of the teeth and other below. So one lingual bar with a cingulum bar retainer, wherein which the center area is cut off. So that is a double lingual bar. Now it has two bars, right? So both has its own cross section. Okay, so the lower is similar to your lingual bar, like a half pear shaped, half pear shaped, whereas the upper one over there, it is half oval shaped, half oval. So half pear shaped and half oval shape. This half pear shape, we already know it is 5 millimeters. This will come around 2 or 3 millimeters. Okay, the height. So that is about your double lingual bar. In this also, if we have spacing or if we have wide embrasures, so in that case what we have a step back design, wherein the upper bar will move as a scalloping from one teeth to another, so that in between the teeth that metal exposure is not present, right? So that is the step back design. Apart from that, again similarly, there should be a mesial rest which is on the mesial fossa of the premolar. So mesial rest on premolar first, which will act as indirect retainer. So almost similar to lingual plate, but वही है कि you have to remove the middle section, cut it out, so it becomes a double lingual bar. Now where all can you go with a double lingual bar? So if I talk about the indications, the first and the foremost indication is with the large interproximal spaces or large embrasures, where we can use this step back design along with the double lingual bar, or in large diastema cases. Large diastema cases, usually you cannot go with this lingual bar in shortened or a less vestibular depth region. You need good amount of vestibular depth, right? Because you need one bar on the cingulum, one below it, in between you will cut, right? Apart from that, see, lingual bar and lingual plate are almost similar. If you want to go with a more aesthetic design but a more complex design, then double lingual bar. If you want to go with still an aesthetic design but with less complexity in fabricating it, you can go with a lingual plate. In both the cases, the step back design is going to be complicated. The disadvantage of this step back design will be in the slot which we create, food accumulation will be more. So oral hygiene becomes difficult in the step back design cases. If we talk about the advantages of this double lingual bar, again, it provides good indirect retention, provides good indirect retention, it provides good horizontal stabilization, good horizontal stabilization. Disadvantages, yes, we can guess the disadvantages. First will be that you have two bars, right? So obviously the tongue is going to be a bit in discomfort, right? So tongue might feel interference. Okay, second disadvantages is food lodgement in the cutout area. So these are the two disadvantages of your double lingual bar. See, mandibular major connectors are comparatively easier and simple than your maxillary major connectors. Okay, once you understand the maxillary, the mandibular major connectors are easy to understand. So now